hamstring that he strained last week that should not hold him out. Deshaun Watson's been limited to practice. And what's interesting here is that a week ago, the Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski said he expected Watson to play in the preseason finale against Seattle. This week, it was a little bit different, saying that his shoulder was a little sore, didn't want to push him, and they hadn't made a decision about whether he's going to play in that last preseason game. So it certainly sounds like he's not going to play. And then they do believe he's still on track to be ready for that regular season opener against the Dallas Cowboys with Tom Brady in the booth. Watson should be out there, but he's going to go out there not having taken any games or any snaps in any preseason games and not having played any meaningful snaps since he had the shoulder surgery last season.
If we're talking about playing time, Adam, he has only played in 12 of a possible 35 games since joining this team. How much is he going to miss if he doesn't get those preseason reps? How big a deal is that going to be for him?
I think it's a big deal, even though the guy's been in the NFL for a long time. We just haven't seen Deshaun play a ton of football over the past couple of years, and certainly under Kevin Stefanski. And they have a new offensive coordinator with Ken Dorsey. Deshaun Watson has thrown for multiple touchdowns in back-to-back games one time since 2020. And it's only happened that one time, the back end of the 2022 season. We don't know who Deshaun is as a player. He was one of the best and most electrifying quarterbacks in football. But over the last 3 seasons, we just don't know. So we always get asked these questions like, what's the expectation for the... I have no idea. I don't know what type of athlete he is anymore. I don't know what type of quarterback he is anymore. I don't know who he is under Kevin Stefanski.
Haven't seen him. Woody?
So I think what Dan is saying is, will the real Deshaun Watson please stand up?
Sure.
Quote my man Slim Shady there. Yeah, I mean, because it's been quite some time since we've seen, the Deshaun Watson from the Houston Texans. That's who the Cleveland Browns traded for. But we don't know who this guy is. He hasn't played that elite high-end football in quite some time. And when we talk about this Cleveland Browns roster, this roster is stacked, folks. This is one of the best rosters in the National Football League here. I mean, just look at the projected starters just on offense. Like, elite talent littered all across the board. So if they can get Deshaun Watson playing at a high level, this Cleveland Browns team is going to have a lot to say in the AFC.
Adam, what about Nick Chubb, though? What's the situation with him coming back?
Well, Hannah, still working his way back from that devastating knee injury that he suffered last year. The team is being very cautious. I don't expect him to be ready to start the season. I do think that they'll ramp him up slowly once he gets underway. I still think it could be the middle of the season before we see him, but that's a decision they're going to make as they gauge his progress this fall.
And you could take the Brandon Aiyuk interest for Cleveland is they are all in, or they want to get as many weapons as possible.
They need something. Yep. The man, Shefty, to bring us to it. What's going on, Shefty?
Well, Hannah, rare in-division trade. The Washington Commanders send Jahan Dotson to the Philadelphia Eagles in a trade that involved 4 separate draft picks. The Eagles get a number 3 receiver, while the Washington Commanders accumulate more draft capital for a player that the Commanders once drafted in the first round. Now, there had been whispers all through the summer that he had lost some standing and status in Washington. There were people who wondered whether or not he would start, how much he would play. But rather than those questions being answered, Philadelphia spoke with Washington, worked out a trade, and the Eagles were willing to take on any of that risk and responsibility, and today completed a trade that gives Jalen Hurts one more offensive weapon on the other side of football. He will step in and likely become the number 3 wideout behind A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and give the Eagles some added depth at the wide receiver spot. So that's an interesting trade and an interesting pickup there. Washington is now a little lighter at the wide receiver position, but they like Olamide Zaccheaus, the veteran wide receiver. They drafted Luke McCaffrey, the younger brother of Christian McCaffrey. They believe those players will complement Terry McLaurin, the veteran stellar wide receiver, in addition to the 2 tight ends, Zach Ertz and the rookie Ben Sinnott. So they feel like they're going to be set there. It enabled them to make this trade, and you get another rare in-division trade today that gives Philadelphia a wide receiver.
Yeah, I feel this is what the new age GMs do. They're like, sure, I'll just, best offer, I'll take it in division or not. But man, that receiver room in Philly. So where do you see Kellen Moore, this new OC, that offense? Where do you see Dotson fitting in?
Well, I think this is now giving Philadelphia the best wide receiver trio in football. I mean, the Eagles have the best wide receiver trio with A.J. Brown, Devontae, and Jahan Dotson. I'm surprised Jahan didn't grab on a little bit more in Washington. I called a couple of his college football games, and he was such a good route runner, so sudden, in and out of cuts, being able to go deep. His hands were so strong, being able to make some contested catches, a guy that was really good down in the red zone, and also great with the ball in his hands. So I'm surprised he wasn't more productive, but now he doesn't have to be that number 2 option. I mean, he really gets to be, it's the 3rd wide receiver, but you can make the case it's the 4th pass catcher. With A.J., Devontae, and Dallas Goedert, and with Kellen Moore, who's their new offensive coordinator, Kellen really does like to live in a little bit of an 11 personnel. He'll mix his personnels up, but having those 3 wide receivers on the field in 11 personnel, this was a really good offense to begin with. If Dotson just replicates what he did, which is 50 or so catches and 500 yards at that number 3 wide receiver spot, I don't know of anybody in the NFC that can line up and play man-to-man coverage against those 4 pass catchers.
Although I might put Houston's trio up there too, by the way. I know you said that Philly's is better. They're the best. But anyway, we'll get to them later.
We can get into that conversation.
We got plenty of time because I want to go back to the Commanders, Adam. Now, we know Adam Peters came from the Niners. We know that Jane Daniels and Brandon Aiyuk were college teammates. I'm just, putting it all together here, right? Is there any indication that this move could be related to interest in a trade for Aiyuk?
Hannah, that's a very perceptive question. And it's something that I think a lot of people want answers to. The fact of the matter is, the Commanders and 49ers have spoken at various points, and never once has the trade conversation ever generated any momentum. That doesn't mean that the two sides couldn't revisit it now, but to my understanding, I don't believe that this trade of Jahan Dotson was made as it pertained to any potential Brandon Aiyuk deal. A lot of people wondering that. Fair to speculate about that. But to date, nothing's changed there. Now, could all of a sudden Washington decide this weekend, let's go make a play for Brandon Aiyuk? They could. But let's keep this in mind, too. Brandon Aiyuk is going to come in at a contract that would be roughly double what their veteran wide receiver Terry McLaurin already makes. Terry McLaurin makes about $15 million. It'd be very hard to go out, trade a bunch of picks, not to mention a player, for Brandon Aiyuk, and then go pay him twice as much as your veteran wide receiver who's been the face of your franchise when this player never has taken a snap with that team. So, again, interesting speculation, fair to wonder. The two sides have had various intermittent, sporadic, spontaneous conversations, but I don't see that having any traction at this time, not to say it couldn't change.
That makes a lot of sense. So does this make sense, though, Dan? Because with a rookie quarterback, you have Jaden Daniels, and I don't know, conventional wisdom might say you would add weapons, you would put people around him, kind of like Caleb Williams has, but yet they actually took an option away. What does that say to you about what Cliff Kingsbury's plans are?
Yeah, first of all, I'm shocked that Terry McLaurin only makes $15 million. He is underpaid at wide receiver. I don't love this. I really don't.
Okay.
I don't want to overreact, but one of the reasons why I liked Jaden in Washington and thought, Caleb at number 1, that's an abnormally good situation, and Jaden Daniels at 2, that's an abnormally healthy situation because I think their offensive line is going to be okay. And then the addition of Ben Sinnott at tight end, Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, I was like, okay, a young quarterback can go thrive a little bit with some of those pass-catching options. Terry McLaurin, we know that. So now it's really dependent on, a Luke McCaffrey or a De'Ami Brown, who's their third-year wide receiver out of North Carolina, to take that step forward. Now, Jaden and De'Ami have made some connections in this preseason, so maybe he's surging. You remember that catch down the sideline against the New York Jets? That's De'Ami Brown, some of the stop routes this past weekend. But there's pressure now on a relatively unproven pass catcher to be someone that becomes a reliable and viable pass catcher opposite Terry McLaurin. So I don't love this for Jaden Daniels. But I want to trust Adam Peters, their general manager, and Dan Quinn that they've seen stuff in training camp from a couple receivers that give them comfort in making this decision.
Yeah, because Kingsbury, he's always got to have that good number one receiver, right?
Like he really wants a couple guys.
Like he had in Arizona, he would rather have a few.
Cliff's offense isn't a ton of motion and formations to help maybe lesser players. He's a little bit more of a static coach. It's a little bit more of win one-on-ones, or I'll create space, you go get the space and do something with it. So it's just going to be those unproven players proving that they're capable of filling that role now.
Guess who finally made it to the show?
The big fella?
Yeah,
the big fella.
I mean,
look, he was napping. Look at him.
Where
he was napping.
Like, were we tickling the ivories? You know, were we taking a nap? I mean, what gives? What gives, D. Woody? You're just gonna.
That nap was tremendous. I heard you guys mentioning it off the top. Listen, I got to catch a nap whenever I can, so I'm feeling real energized for the show today.
Dano called that, by the way.
I get it.
That's what you get when you're on early in the morning. And that's right. Dano just falls asleep in the green room. What?
Hannah, grandpas need naps, and grandpas also can get fined for taking naps. That's the way it goes.
What's the late fee? What's the late fee on this, Shefty?
All right, so we are giving you a pass, all right, Grandpa Damien. What about the Commanders of it all? What do you think about what we've been talking about here?
Yeah, I got a mixed bag about this one, because you always want to have as many weapons available for Jaden Daniels in this situation. But, I heard Dano reference it. Maybe the other receivers in the mix have really stepped up during training camp. I know Dynamic Brown was a guy that we saw the flash in that preseason game against the Jets. Luke McCaffrey is a guy, their draft pick from this year maybe is a guy that's, shown in training camp that he's ready for a bigger role and made him dispensable. So I just look at maybe the other guys stepped up this preseason, but I'm always kind of in favor of as many weapons as possible for a young quarterback.
Yeah, that's what we were saying. Yeah, and now they get to see him twice a year. They get to see that. I mean, send him to the Eagles. Okay. Do you think Dotson might be excited about joining the Eagles? So check out this post from March. He responded to a photo of the Philly skill players, and he asked, "What Madden Ultimate Team is this?" Well, now you add Dotson to that group. Going to be real good.
Oh, that's what MUT stands for.
Yeah, MUT. All right. You didn't know that. I didn't either until it was explained to me. Madden Ultimate Team. All right, let's go to Aaron Rodgers. Played 2 drives in their preseason last year in that finale against the Jets. Not this time around, though. Robert Saleh says he's going to leave his quarterback on the shelf until the season opener against the Niners, and was asked about it today.
I'm not thinking about it from an injury standpoint because, like I said, you can get hurt at practice. You can get hurt brushing your teeth, for crying out loud. But this has everything to do with whether or not we're preparing ourselves properly and not just looking at checking the old coach's box. I feel good about it. We got to go play. Does it really help us in week 1? And we've played them in the past, and we're taking this whole off season. We've taken a different approach with how we're preparing our guys for week 1, and hopefully it pans out.
Listen, all of Jets Nation is going to be nervous the first time he steps on the field, no matter when it is, Adam. What more can you tell us about this decision regarding the preseason?
Hannah, they felt like this was the safest thing to do. And if you remember last year, Aaron Rodgers got in the last preseason game, played well, everybody was excited, and then lo and behold, goes out, and on the 4th play of the season, everybody knows what happened. And Aaron Rodgers himself has said that he has felt like this has been one of the most, if not the most rigorous training camp of his career. He's gotten in the work that he's needed. They don't need to put him out there unnecessarily in their mind. And so they're going to hold him back. They've had joint practices this summer. They've had various work this summer that they believe has gotten Aaron Rodgers to the point that they believe he's going to be ready for that Monday night regular season opener in San Francisco against the 49ers without exposing him in a 3rd preseason game against the New York Giants.
Yeah. And before last year, Dano, he hadn't even played in the preseason since 2018. I mean, this This isn't a big deal, right?
One, he's 40. He's taking plenty of hits. We don't need to get him more hits. Number two, the team that they're playing in their preseason game 3 is the New York Giants. They've practiced against them all week. So why am I just going to try and do in a game where he could be hit like we've done in practice? It's not needed. And then the third thing is this. This offense is going to fire on all cylinders. With the improved offensive line, with Aaron Rodgers, the only question I have is how much of it is going to be an RPO-centric offense. That's it. That's all I'm really interested in. They do not need to play Aaron Rodgers. And I love the fact that Robert Saleh talked about it, and he said, listen, we've done it this way in the past. We decided as an organization we're going to do it differently in this offseason and preseason. I don't know if it's going to be, a positive for us. We'll find out, but at least the method being explained, I totally understand and appreciate.
Yeah, we're overthinking this. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has seen plenty of ball. He's 40. Like, does Aaron Rodgers really need preseason games? It's not like he was doing a ton of it in the past, even when he was with the Green Bay Packers. And so they've done, they've had one of their hardest training camps, in the Robert Saleh era. And again, why would you expose your guy that clearly we saw when Aaron Rodgers was out last year, what he meant to that football team? You want to go into Santa Clara on Monday Night Football with all hands on deck. So the preseason is over, in my opinion. It's time to get to the real work of preparing for week 1.
Yeah, and he's had a tough time playing there in Santa Clara. Going home and trying to win has not been the easiest for him. We are just getting in the Rams continuing their joint practices in advance of their preseason game in H-Town on Saturday. Neither team expected to play their starters this Saturday, but getting in plenty of work today. As you know, the Texans, one of the trendy teams, coming off a division title and made moves to get even better, adding a pair of players with double-digit sacks last year in Danielle Hunter and Danico Autry. On offense, just the 5th team ever to add a 1,000-yard rusher and a 1,000-yard receiver from the previous year, trading for Joe Mixon and Stephon Diggs. C.J. Stroud asked about his new wideout earlier today.
It's improved drastically. I think, me and him kind of already had a natural connection on the field, and, we just built it and built it and built it. So I think you've seen it on the field of just, just reps after rep after rep, just me and him having a conversation, talking about things we like, we don't like, and just being transparent. But, it's going to continue to grow, and, it's going to be a special connection.
And Woody, we got Nico Collins back. Tank Dell is healthy. This sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. What are your expectations for this offense this season?
High-powered. There's a lot of mouths to feed in this offense. A lot of mouths to feed. Even before the Stephon Diggs trade, I always thought that the weapons in Houston, they had some of the best weapons in the National Football League. And offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick has done a masterful job working with C.J. Stroud and his concepts and designs on offense. It's really just some of the best that we've seen in the National Football League. But, when you're in on Stephon Diggs, who's obviously coming over and he's in a contract year, he's going to be out to prove that what's been going on in Buffalo is not, is not going to bring.
Up, we're losing Woody just a little bit. Losing Woody, we're going to get back to that connection. But C.J. Stroud
His Wi-Fi's taking a nap.
Yeah, exactly. C.J. Stroud isn't catching anyone napping this season, all right? We're just going to go with that theme, right? Listen, everybody's got plenty of film on this guy. What are opposing defenses going to try to take away from Stroud?
It's really hard because this Bobby Slowick, who's their play caller, the offensive scheme from Kyle Shanahan, it really stresses and stretches so much of the football field. I think number one is, can they minimize the middle of the field in the play-action pass game? That's something that became such a big deal for this offense. Look at CJ when it comes to where he ranked in the NFL when it came to throwing in between the numbers. They ate in the middle of the field. And again, that's a big part of the foundation or the theme of a Kyle Shanahan offense. And I think the second thing is, can they on third down make somebody else other than Nico Collins hurt them? Houston and CJ were remarkable on third downs last year, and the connection between these two guys was fantastic. Just look at the yards per attempt. On third down, you're averaging almost 15 yards, and you're completing 75% of the passes to that guy. So if defenses can try to muddy the middle of the field a little bit, easier said than done because of the play-action game and because really with the addition of Steph, you're going to be even, more horizontally stretched. And then, on those third down situations, Nico became the guy for C.J. Stroud and for that. And
he got paid, too.
In the scheme. And so I think, trying to find two ways where you might be able to slow that group down.
Are you still going Houston number 2, Philly number 1, wide out?
I'm still saying Philly number 1, and I think Houston's remarkable. By all accounts, Tank Dell looks back, but you want to see coming off of that injury. And then who is Steph, really? Is Steph going to be
he
was at the back end of last year?
He is. Come on, Joe Brady took him out of that offense.
I would say this.
No indication that he has lost his step.
I hope not, and I'm a huge Steph fan, but he's got to go do it. He's got to go be that vertical threat that he used to be.
All right.
You're a homer right now. You're a homer right now. Seattle's in the conversation too.
No, they are. There's other good trios.
You got me.
Titans have a good trio.
I'm sticking with Philly.
Yeah, okay.
I'm sticking with Philly.
All right.
You were looking at me.
Spoiler, and I'm really upset about that.
Don't know it.
I'm going to try to. Not all of us are completely caught up, but Adam Schefter is caught up with all the news. Coming out of Atlanta, they've been doing a lot to shore up that defense and make that secondary happy. So what's happened with A.J. Terrell today?
Well, Hannah, the Atlanta Falcons have been very busy over the last 8 days, trading for Matt Judon, signing free agent safety Justin Simmons, and today signing their standout cornerback A.J. Terrell to a 4-year, $80.1 million contract extension that ties into that franchise for years to come. Here's a player that they wanted to tie up. Now they actually have done that, and they will keep him there in Atlanta, a player that they had identified that they wanted to build around. He's been a standout since they drafted him, and today they wound up rewarding him in what has become the latest move for this Falcons franchise, signing A.J. Terrell and making him the second highest paid cornerback in all of football.
Yeah, behind the Packers' Jair Alexander. All right, so let's take a look at what the Falcons have been up to. Making some steps to improve that pass defense. Last year, they ranked near the bottom of the league in interceptions. They ranked in the bottom half of the league in pressure percentage, and they added a couple of good ones last week. Woody, take us through it. Have they done enough? Matthew Judon, Justin Simmons, how do you like it?
I love it. I love it because you address, two areas of weakness for this Atlanta Falcons defense. Obviously, Matthew Judon wants a new contract. He's still, when healthy, one of the best pass rushers that we have in the National Football League. And now you have Justin Simmons to pair with Jesse Bates III to give the Atlanta Falcons one of the best safety tandems in the league. Both guys are playmakers on the back end. So you're talking about really helping this defense that we had questions about going into the NFL draft, and now they're able to get a pass rusher and a playmaking safety. I love what the Falcons have done.
Haven't had a double-digit sack season since Vic Beasley back in 2016. Woo! Okay, now let's go on to Denver. Rookie Bo Nix named the starting quarterback. Here's Nix yesterday after receiving the news.
It'll be a special moment, and obviously that's great to share with such a great player like John Elway, but definitely want to consider going out there and doing whatever I can do ultimately for the team. Doesn't matter when your first start is. Doesn't matter if you have to wait or if you go right now. You just want to get out there and get the first win and ultimately compete at a high level and give your team the best chance possible.
Dano, he had over 60 starts in college. Why did he get this gig?
Because he makes the right decision really quickly. And I think doing that frees up Sean Payton and their playbook to be very diversified. You could run short yardage stuff where there's little ball fakes, and he can get to the third option in 2.7 seconds. And I'm talking from when that ball gets snapped to when that ball gets out of his hands. You can run a little bit of a quarterback movement or keeper game where you could fake run, and he has another second option where he throws it to Tim Patrick and slows him down, again, right around 3 seconds from that operation. Third and long, you can spread the field and still push it vertically, and he can make the right read in the middle and get that ball out of his hands as that receiver's dropping his weight. That's a big deal. Sean Payton is going to design guys to get open. As long as you make the right decision in a very quick amount of time, you're going to get the ball in your hands, you're going to have completions, you're going to be efficient and rhythmic in offense, you're not going to take sacks, and there are going to be a lot of long drives. I think that's the main reason why not only won the job, I'm intrigued a little bit by this offense because of the way Bo Nix has played in this preseason.
Yeah, they spent a ton of cash on that offensive line, too,
yes.
Dan, so we'll see if they earn their keep. All right, time for some top stories. Adam, Jerry Jones said this week the Cowboys were having promising talks with CeeDee Lamb, and I feel like we are just in Groundhog Day here. So, Adam, are we any closer to a deal with CeeDee Lamb?
Well, Hannah, happy Groundhog Day. We
Yes.
are not. Right now, the two sides have continued to wait each other out, and at some point in time, they're going to be able to narrow their differences and figure out a deal. But it doesn't look like that's happening today, although there could always be some last-minute talks. We'll see. But CeeDee Lamb and the Dallas Cowboys continue to remain engaged in discussions. We'll see if they can finally figure out a solution that will get Lamb back into camp. He has been missing all throughout. As for Jamar Chase, the Bengals wide receiver, similar story in the sense that he wants a new contract. The Bengals and he have not yet figured it out. He hasn't practiced during the spring. He hasn't practiced so far during training camp. And we heard Chad Ochocinco say last week that he doesn't think Jamar Chase will step on the football field again without a new contract. So we'll continue tracking that. And as for Brandon Aiyuk, again, this is a situation that shows there's no solution in sight. Now, at some point, there's going to be a breakthrough on all three of these situations. But right now, the 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk remain engaged in a stalemate. The 49ers have tried to re-sign him, have not succeeded. They've tried to trade him. They have not succeeded. They have been through any number of scenarios this summer, and I think right now we're getting closer and closer to the regular season. The longer this goes, the more dramatic it is, the more significant it becomes. And again, we don't know when this is going to end, but it has not gone the way that the 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk would like.
Yeah, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. It's really hard to imagine them starting that season, playing that first game against the Jets without him. And Brock Purdy threw 552 passes last season, including in the playoffs. Only 13% of those came without Aiyuk on the field. Purdy was pretty productive, though, when he wasn't there. He completed 76% of his passes, 5 touchdowns, no picks. And he completed 15 of his final 16 attempts without Aiyuk on the field. Not like a huge sample size there, but... Sure. Let's say Aiyuk isn't on the field in week 1 or for an extended period of time. How much does that hurt Purdy?
Yeah, it's a big deal. This offense under Brock Purdy has been different in 2 different ways. Number 1, his athleticism is created, no doubt. And then 2, really pushing the ball downfield. And that's really expanded this offense. I mean, Brock Purdy's willingness to throw the ball downfield, his capability to throw the ball downfield, specifically to Brandon Aiyuk, has changed, has elevated this offense. And so if you take Brandon Aiyuk out, that's going to minimize a little bit of Brock Purdy's willingness, his comfort level, his ability to do it, because Brandon is in many ways the guy to do that. And so I think the absence of Brandon Aiyuk almost takes away that elevation of Kyle Shanahan's offense under Brock Purdy and brings it a little bit back down to earth when with those 2 guys on the field, it's in many ways felt essentially unstoppable.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they were missing several players in that preseason game last week, but Purdy just looked so bad, so lost that you almost like project in your mind, like, what could this look like if he doesn't have Aiyuk there? Not that bad.
Sure.
Brandon Aiyuk is holding in. Trent Williams is holding out. He hasn't been to practice at all. I mean, talk about critical to this team, Adam. What can you tell us about those contract talks?
Hannah, Kyle Shanahan said yesterday that he has had contact with Trent Williams, and he sounded like he was encouraged, but it also doesn't sound like they're a whole lot closer to an agreement at this particular current time. Doesn't mean it couldn't change quickly. It certainly could. They want to have Trent Williams. They plan to bring him back into the fold at some point in time, and I think most people believe that somehow, some way, they'll figure out a way to get this done for opening night against the New York Jets. But again, training camp goes on without Trent Williams, without Brandon Aiyuk, and a team that already is nursing a Super Bowl hangover has a couple of significant looming offensive questions that cast a cloud over this team's horizon and upcoming hopes.
Yeah, listen, as much as we talk about Brandon Aiyuk and his importance, Trent Williams' absence is even of greater importance for the 49ers. You're talking about the best left tackle in the game, even at the age of 36. Now, I'm not sitting here tripping about training camp because I was once a Wily vet, and I didn't want to deal with training camp at all. But we are getting down to the wire here with about a little over 2 weeks before that Monday night game against the Jets. They need Trent Williams in the mix because without Trent Williams, quite honestly, that offensive line is average at best. I don't even know if they even average. They need Trent Williams and his ability, not only in pass protection, but in his run blocking ability to really make this thing go offensively. And we've seen in the preseason what it looks like without him in there. It's not very good. So they need the big fella in the mix and in the mix quickly.
Yeah, this is the biggest, this is the most important, this is the most impactful holdout we have in the NFL right now.
More so than Aiyuk, more so than any of the receivers.
Absolutely.
Yes.
The Aiyuk holdout, huge. The CeeDee Lamb holdout, huge. The Jamar Chase holdout, huge. And they're not as important as Trent Williams. Woody just kind of laid it out. He's the best football player. He is the best guy playing football, not named Patrick Mahomes. He's that good of a player. And if he doesn't get back and playing to the level that we expect him to and that we're accustomed to significantly, or San Francisco is significantly less of a football team. I mean, Woody, look at these numbers, fella. They run to the left. They average over 6 yards a carry. When they need a touchdown run the football, they go left. Trent Williams, so everyone knows, plays left tackle. They almost double their yardage going left than they do right. Yep. He's that important of a football player. So as big a deal as those 3 wideouts are, it's not as big a deal as Trent Williams.
Led the NFL in pass block win rate last season. And, I mean, just keep in mind in the prism of all of this that Brock Purdy is eligible for a contract extension after this season.
It's coming.
So he needs his left tackle. He needs his receiver. Come on, folks, do it. Do it for the QB.
No question.
Oh, I just want to break into a jig right now. Right?
Jig?
Little Irish jig.
Oh, Irish jig, okay.
Yeah, I'll show you the steps later. All right, let's head to Pittsburgh, where Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are the league's most interesting quarterback competition right now. Russ is set to start in this final preseason game. Here's Mike Tomlin all about it today.
Will Russ start, and is there any more clarity going forward about whether he's in the pole position or starting?
Nothing's changed in terms of the positioning of those guys, and yes, he will start.
What do you want to see out of Justin in this game?
You know, I want to see him show some of the things that we've seen out here in the practice setting, much like I've talked about the offensive unit. We've had some really good days and shown a really high floor with the potential for splash plays, and so I want to see it in the stadium.
Really, no one's looked good. So far, this first-team offense hasn't scored a single point. Adam, what can you tell us about how this battle figures to play out at quarterback?
Well, let's lean into what Mike Tomlin was saying there, Hannah. He said that nothing has changed. And what Mike Tomlin has said so far is that Russell Wilson is in the pole position. Nothing's changed. Russell Wilson will start this weekend in the preseason finale in what figures to be the game that helps decide him cement that decision. Now, Russell Wilson knows he wants to play better. I think Justin Fields wants to play better. But Justin Fields is going to have to play very well, and Russell's going to have to fall off here for Justin Fields to overtake Russell to start the season based on what Mike Tomlin has and is saying. So, again, I think both quarterbacks are looking for improved performance. I still think Russell Wilson's in the lead, and we'll see how the weekend determines Mike Tomlin's decision going forward.
Yeah, because they just haven't been productive on offense the entire preseason, no matter who is at quarterback. They certainly have some work to do there. In 13 drives with either of these guys, they've managed just 3 points, and they punted 8 times. They have averaged about 1.5 yards per play when Wilson has been under center 5 drives compared to, well, more than 4 yards per play. Fields has had 8 drives. He has run for 44 yards and averaged 2 more yards per pass attempt than Wilson. All right, just take from that what you will. But we have Dan the Man at the touchscreen, and he has watched Justin Fields this preseason. Where does he need to improve, Dan?
Yeah, see it, trust it, and rip it. I want Justin to look at the defense, get through his progressions, and get rid of any doubt of what he's looking at and get the ball out of his hands, because there's people who believe, well, Justin can't see the field. And then I say, well, I think there's evidence that Justin actually is seeing the field and he's just not trusting his eyes. This goes a little bit back to last year and a little bit back to his time in Chicago. Okay, so bottom of the screen, he's going to start on 3rd down with a little bit of what we call a spray out route, okay? Justin is going to set to throw that. Now, Justin decides not to. And the question is, well, why? As he's set to throw this out, he might not like that out route because he might feel that underneath defender can undercut it. That's fine. You got to trust your eyes. Now get to number 2 and number 3. And this is what I say when people say he can't see it. Justin resets, and he is staring right at this big in route that's coming at the top of the screen. There's a void there. So I'm showing you evidence that you can see it. I just want you to cut the ball loose and throw it. But for some reason, he hesitates, doesn't trust his eyes, check down, great, incompletion. Now a little bit later on 3rd down again, Justin's going to have the opportunity to read over the middle of the field. It's a little bit of a high-low. We're going to have a little bit of release here, and then this tight end's going to go down to the seam. You're going to read the middle. Those linebackers separate for Justin Fields right here. These 2 linebackers, they're going to part almost like the Red Sea, okay? If they do, this ball's going down the middle of the field. I have Justin staring down the middle of the field. You see those linebackers. There it is right there. Trust your eyes and cut that ball loose. But instead of doing that, Justin's going to take off, become an athletic runner, and here's the problem. He turns it into a completion and a 1st down. So there is good there, but I want to see Justin Fields. Can you see the defense like I have examples of? I'm not looking for perfection, but examples of doing that. And then when your brain says, cut it loose and throw it, don't worry about misses. Don't worry about interceptions. Don't worry about bad. You got to at some point get past that doubt, trust what your eyes are seeing, and cut the ball loose.
Yeah, but taking care of the football, that's been his MO. So, as you said, maybe he just needs to put that out of his mind. All right, Bill Barnwell took to ESPN.com to share the 5 teams that he thinks will regress this season. Oh, my goodness. So you have the Ravens on there and the Eagles. Okay. He also has the Steelers on that list, coming off a 10-7 season. Woody, I mean, do you agree that the Steelers will regress this season?
I don't. In my opinion, if they go with Justin Fields, I don't see them regressing, because I think if you do go with a Justin Fields, you're going with a strength. You're making clear what your intentions are going to be as an offense, and that we're going to hang our hat on running the football with an athletic quarterback in Justin Fields. We know what Russell Wilson is. We've seen this story time and time again. Okay, but at least with Justin Fields at the helm, the one thing I can do is I can build a rushing attack around that rare athletic ability that he would bring to the table. Okay, I think if you go with Russell Wilson, 10-7, they'll be 10-7 again, 9-8, 10-7. Oh, we'll be saying, oh well, Mike Tomlin doesn't have a losing record, but give me something that's a little bit unpredictable, something that will kind of scare defensive coordinators, and that's where, in my opinion, what Justin Fields brings to the table.
I mean, for the record, that's... All right, time now to take a look at some injuries across the NFL training camps. And there he is, the man busy on his phone. Adam Schefter, give us the latest, starting with Tyreek Hill.
Well, and he's dealing with a thumb injury right now. The Dolphins believe that he's going to be ready and going to be on track to open the season, so it shouldn't be much of a setback. But he was in a brace this week. You never want to see the cheetah in a brace. They're holding him out of practice right now. He didn't play in the first 2 preseason games. Can't imagine they're going to play him in the 3rd either. But again, they do think he should be ready in time for the opening day game in Miami and the season that awaits. Meanwhile, a couple of notable injuries in Detroit. Penei Sewell limped off the field yesterday. He rolled his ankle, and Jahmyr Gibbs is dealing with a hamstring injury right now. Both players are on track to be ready for the opening game against the Los Angeles Rams. Obviously, when Sewell went off the field, that was very disconcerting to Detroit, but they went through tests and determined it wasn't serious, no issues, and they feel the same way about Jahmyr Gibbs.
All right, one more thing. The Jets' Sauce Gardner was at a loss, maybe for words, when he was asked what it was like to go against Daniel Jones in joint practice. This happened yesterday. Sauce took to social media and he said, "I said he's a good quarterback. I just got a little distracted with something mid-interview." Yeah. Chill, D-Woody. That was priceless. I think he got distracted by his own brain. Like, what should I say? What can I say about this guy?
Hannah. Yeah. Hannah, chill.
Chào mừng các bạn đã đến với kênh YouTube của mình. Hôm nay là một ngày không đẹp trời cho lắm, nhưng mình vẫn tiếp tục gửi tặng đến các bạn những tác phẩm thật là đẹp và tuyệt vời. Và mình mong rằng các bạn xem video của mình thì hãy ấn like và đăng ký kênh để ủng hộ mình. để mình tiếp tục lấy động lực ra video. Mình xin chân thành cảm ơn các bạn rất là nhiều. Bây giờ mời các bạn cùng theo dõi quá trình mình tạo ra video của mình nhé. Xin mời.
Em sẽ tầm mỏ vậy nè.
Như vậy giờ mình không như vậy. Về điện đấy. Cái điện này. Mình sẽ đưa chi tiết tôi mỏ cho bạn. Okay.